dangerous news, guys, from the Pacific Ring of Fire. That is this horseshoe ring that has most of the world's volcanic eruptions and most of the world's dangerous earthquakes, the mega thrust earthquakes. We just had Kamchatka with 8.8. So why are the scientists are saying that it's going weird, something strange is going on with it, heightened activity, and that's not good, guys. And since I am living on the Pacific Ring of Fire, this actually concerns me a lot. So I'm going to share with you what the scientists have discovered. Scientists are flagging the rising unrest around the Ring of Fire, the Pacific Ring of Fire around the Pacific Plate. The scientists are tracking the Pacific Ring of Fire's most volatile margin, and they say that a familiar pattern is sharpening into something more urgent. And because we have clusters of earthquakes and restless volcanoes. And why is this so concerning? Because that hints at shifting stresses along the planet's most dangerous seismic belt. The Ring of Fire has always been active, so it being active is not the main reason of concern, but the latest signals, they suggest that a phase of heightened unrest is going on right now. So this affects coastal cities a lot. This is less about one single isolated disaster event. But what the scientists say, we could see a long grinding escalation of risk in which we could see subtle changes in magma, in plates, in pressure that could translate into life or death stakes for millions and millions of people that live along the Pacific Ring of Fire. And it's kind of concerning on the west coast of Canada and the US, where we know the Cascadia subduction zone, the big one, is overdue, magnitude 9 plus along the Pacific Ring of Fire. We're basically dealing with an almost 30,000 mile, 40,000 kilometer long arc of doomsday. This is what the Pacific Ring of Fire can be, as beautiful as it is to live along it. So if we're talking about unrest of the Pacific Ring of Fire, we have to scale the system that is stirring this unrest. So the Pacific Ring of Fire is not a single fault or a single volcano. It's a sweeping tectonic boundary that basically wraps around the ocean basin of the Pacific Ocean. We have, unfortunately, because of that, the world's most powerful earthquakes, tsunamis, and eruptions, basically within a single interconnected zone. Intense geological activity. And because it's so large, it's of course not easy to manage the risk across so many borders and coastlines that are involved in that Pacific Ring of Fire. You see it here on the map. It spans many different countries, and it's not that like every country has its own risk. Some countries share the risk, like Canada and the US with the Cascadia fault. So now that the scientists flag the risk, they're not talking about a single hotspot in a single country, but they're talking about a whole system where pressure can be redistributed thousands of miles away from where it first released, maybe on the other side, somewhere. And because the Pacific Ring of Fire is so long and so huge and involves so many countries, unfortunately, it involves some of the world's most densely populated and economically critical regions. From the Pacific Northwest, US and Canada, to Alaska, to Japan, to Southeast Asia, and the west coast of Central and South America. We're dealing with industrial ports, coastal megacities, fishing communities that all sit within the reach of tsunamis and earthquakes. It could happen anywhere along this huge Pacific Ring of Fire. And we've seen the mega thrust earthquake in Kamchatka. We've seen earthquakes in Japan, in Alaska, right? These tectonic forces are building volcanic arcs We see it on the West Coast. We have all these volcanoes basically that are lining up parallel with the Cascadia subduction zone. We have Mount Baker, we have Mount St. Helens, we have Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, Mount Hood, so many others, right? And in Kamchatka, that megathrust earthquake has even triggered, most likely, several volcanoes. Some say up to 7. I've reported about this. And we still have eruptions happening there right now. And we still have a lot of aftershocks in the higher ranges, magnitude 5 plus, even reaching 6 or 7. So what we need to understand, the Pacific Ring of Fire, if there is unrest, this can have ripple effect for the whole world. Global trade, food security, climate. It's not just local disaster. If something happens on the West Coast, we're talking about cities in Canada, Vancouver, we're talking about Seattle, Portland, big cities on the West Coast. And maybe you have seen my last video. Now we know that the Cascadia fault and the San Andreas fault have triggered each other in the past. So imagine on the West Coast of US and Canada, the San Andreas fault and the Cascadia fault rip together shortly after each other. The whole West Coast will be doomed. So who's there to help? This is a disaster that will affect the West Coast for months, not years to come. And that is huge. We've got military installation in the area around Seattle, for example. Big ports everywhere in Vancouver. For Canada, this is a crucial port. So why are the scientists concerned right now? Why are they saying something's off with the Pacific Ring of Fire? Especially the scientists that focus on the plate tectonics. They're kind of raising the alarm. They say the Pacific plate, how it's behaving right now along the Pacific Ring of Fire's North American flank. They say subtle shifts in motion there can have outsized consequences for everyone who lives along the coast. And unfortunately, we're hearing from the people that surveil this, they say the Pacific plate is going weird near the Pacific Ring of Fire. So when we hear something like this, it doesn't feel good. I have to say that. It doesn't really feel good. I don't know how you feel about that. If you live along the Pacific Ring of Fire, let me know. And guys, before we continue what they have discovered, please do me a favor and give this video a like and a hype and subscribe if you're new here. So many scientists are worried because they say we have unusual patterns of earthquakes, of seismic activity, and also deformation when the land is rising or sinking in some areas. So something's going on. We don't know yet. Is this a temporary fluctuation that we don't need to worry about? Or is this a long-term trend? Is there something building up stress along the plate boundary? So what we're seeing is earthquake swarms, cluster swarms, smaller swarms in the microseismic range. We have changes in plate speed, of course, very tiny, but we're also able to measure that with newer instruments. We have shifts, how strain accumulates along major fault lines. And especially when that happens in areas like the Cascadia subduction zone, in areas that are feared to cause massive destruction. And the Cascadia fault will create a tsunami, a massive tsunami. So that will spread across the whole Pacific plate. This will not only affect coastal West Coast areas. So what scientists are now racing to find out, what they have detected now, can they identify key segments of the Pacific Ring of Fire that might be closer to failure, that might be closer to a major disaster? And we do have volcanoes being active in the northern arc of the Pacific Ring of Fire. And that's the most visible result of this unrest that is happening right now. Because the volcanoes, if they're erupting, we see it, right? So the tectonic plates we have subduction zones many subduction zones. They're the dangerous ones, right? We have some that grind past each other, but also underneath each other. And especially we've heard about Alaska right now, the Aleutian Islands, to the Cascades. We have many volcanoes that have magma rising, cools again, have some unrest, but also erupt. We have a few in Alaska that are currently showing phases of unrest. I've reported about the Great Sitkin volcano in Alaska, huge stratovolcano. So what I'm trying to say with this is we do know, thankfully, how dangerous the Pacific Ring of Fire is. And it is surveilled, but still they do not know too much about it. I mean, imagine this. Just by coincidence, the scientists discovered that the San Andreas Fault and the Cascadia Fault actually have triggered each other in the past. They have. This is proof. But they were looking at something else, and then they got their coordinates wrong, and they were looking at the seafloor in the wrong area. And then they discovered something like, wait a minute. I'll put that video in the end screen. It's really fascinating and absolutely scary, guys. So we have new measurements. We have AI that plays a big role. With AI and with satellites, we can measure the tiniest movements of these important fault lines. Like the width of a hair, we can measure this, and we can look at past data and use AI to give us a more detailed information of what is going on and maybe predict the future. So even very subtle warning signs hopefully will be able to be read by the scientists very soon, so that we can maybe have more advanced warning systems or have some warning systems. And this is important. This is important, especially for the Cascadia subduction zone that is so quiet, that hasn't done anything for hundreds of years. We see things happening in Japan. I mean, big earthquakes, tsunamis, catastrophes, Kamchatka, but the Cascadia Fault is so quiet. So what is going on with the whole Pacific Ring of Fire is especially important for the west coast of Canada and the US. Because it's not the Ring of Fire for us here is not some distant threat. It's very real, and we're thinking about this every day. Alaska, British Columbia, state of Washington, Oregon, California. This is a constant threat for us. Earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions. So we have to, of course, look at the worst case scenario for the West Coast, but there's a whole worst case scenario if the ring is basically not acting like a series of just loosely connected areas, segments. Each segment has its own eruption rhythm, earthquake rhythm, right? We know the Cascadia subduction zone ruptures, we think, every 300 to 500 years. We have Japan, but some scientists are now saying there could be something else. They say we're looking at what would actually happen if we had multiple sections of the Pacific Ring of Fire being triggered at the same time or in quick succession after each other. Because we do know that stress can transfer. That can have multiple effects, of course, with the tsunamis, with the earthquakes, but what if volcanoes are triggered? We've seen it in Kamchatka, right? We could have large amounts of volcanic ash and gas that is triggered into the atmosphere. That can, of course, have significant implications on the rest of the world. Enough material could reach the stratosphere to block the sunlight. So that would just not be a local problem. This would be like alter climate patterns, disrupt agriculture, and strain international supply chains. Basically what we're talking about, what a supervolcanic eruption could do when we talk about Campi Flegrei or Yellowstone. So for everyone that lives along the Pacific Ring of Fire, it is so important to get constant updates, to be prepared. I have a feeling that, unfortunately, here in Canada, people are not really that prepared or aware of it. They often rely on the data that they're getting from the US, and there is not There is not that much preparation here. When I talk to people, I'm like, do you know about the Cascadia fault? What? What? Earthquake? No. So this is kind of surprising to me. When I'm in the US on the coastal areas, people know about it. Of course, you have some tourists that don't. But here it's like, if you Vancouver downtown with that many high rises, I ask people, do you know if your building is secure in case of an earthquake? Because it's not only the Cascadia fault that's a problem for Vancouver. There's another fault that could also create a magnitude 7+ that's right underneath Vancouver. They just don't know. They don't know. There's no earthquake drills in the buildings. There's no information that would tell people, do not run outside. You could be hit by falling glass. What is expected? Tsunami heights? Where are assembly points in the city or something? Nothing. Zero. So you have to take care of yourself, guys. This is my takeaway from this. And I will soon release another update video for the West Coast, what is going on there right now, because it's a little bit strange. Wait for that, guys. So subscribe. I hope you like this video. Please like and hype it, share it with your friends, and I see you in the next one. If you're interested in what's coming from above, 3i Atlas gives us mysteries. Now it could be a flying volcano through our solar system. This is really true. A group of scientists say it could be a cryovolcano. Check out the video here. It's really, really interesting. I see you soon.